99% of people are delusional spectators. 1% are playmakers. And a question that you might constantly ask yourself is, what's the difference between those people that you see constantly winning big on social media, who you're super confident you're better than, smarter than, and work harder than, but for some reason, they are winning so much better and faster than you do? What's the difference between you guys? And what's the difference between them and the other people who can't seem to figure it out? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Now, before we dive into it, who the hell am I and why should you spend any time listening to me? Roll the intro. If you don't know me, I'm Logan Lesser. I've won over 15 state motocross championships and an amateur national championship. I'm an extreme sports athlete, and over the past 6 years, I've fielded over 7 different businesses, built a marketing agency to $30K a month, and spent over $30,000 learning from the best in business, personal branding, fitness, and mindset. I've lived and worked from London, Bali, and Cape Town. Now I'm sharing everything I've learned and continue to learn here on YouTube and even deeper inside my free newsletter. If you want to join, link is in the description below. All right, so the point of this video is it's something that I wish that I would have been told and learned years ago, because years ago I was extremely delusional. And when I first got started in online business with dropshipping, literally I had just discovered it and I thought I was gonna make it big in literally like 6 months time. I thought, this is the big thing. This seems so easy. Like, I can't believe more people aren't doing this. And at the time I was only like 15. So I didn't even have my driver's license or anything yet. I didn't have my own vehicle. So I was so delusional that I thought I was gonna go and buy my dream first vehicle, which it was a Toyota Tacoma. So it wasn't like, you know, that extravagant of a vehicle, but being able to go buy it myself at the age of 15, especially because I had no money, I thought I was gonna be able to do that in like 6 months. So I was super delusional at the time. And the point of this video is I just wanna kind of show you what the reality of it is, so that on your end, you can look at yourself from an outsider's perspective and from just a first principles, logical perspective, and just be like, okay, am I being delusional and do I need to change this? And then what I'm gonna reveal to you is what I've found to be the absolute best way and best strategy to immediately change and shift yourself and your entire identity so that you can be just like these people who are winning all over social media and just winning what seems like effortlessly and fast, which it's not, by the way, but they make it seem like it, but it's not. Trust me, I've seen it. And this is the best strategy that I've found. And it's a very wacky and weird one, so it's definitely something I bet you haven't heard before, but it is an absolute game changer. Now, the first thing that I want to share with you that kind of made me want to make this video is a little story of a friend of mine who I was talking to recently. And if you see this video, by the way, bro, I'm not hating on you or anything. This is the reality of it. And I'm just being real here. But he was telling me, because he's been in college for about like 4 years now, and he literally got me on the phone and he was like, you know, I really want to, it's time for me to lock in. I think I'm gonna drop out. He literally has like not even a year left to get his degree. So he's telling me he wants to drop out, he wants to lock in, he wants to move back to his home state, which is actually here where I live. And he basically just was like, I want to go all in and lock in. So the very next thing that I asked him, I was like, okay, well, what's your plan? And he was like, well, I haven't really figured that out yet. Like, I was asking, what's your plan? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna do a business? Are you gonna do a job? Like, what is it that you want to do? And he basically told me he didn't know yet. So I was like, okay, well, before dropping out and doing all that, maybe figure out a plan, like get something together, like an idea of what you're actually gonna do. But he was basically telling me after that he didn't want to go down the normal route of just normal people, average job, average life, all that type of stuff, as we all say and as we all think. Like, nobody wants to be average, obviously. So he starts telling me that and everything, and basically talking about how he's gonna lock in and do all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, you know what? Why don't you call me back? I'm curious, put together a plan and figure out kind of what you want to do and everything, and call me back. But I was also real with him, and I was like, hey dude, if it was me, I probably wouldn't drop out, because you've already been at school for 4 years now and you only have not even a year left. Like, you might as well just finish this out, get your degree just so you have it. I mean, you're this close, you might as well just cross the finish line, and then at least you've got that piece of paper. And in the meantime, you can still work on whatever things that you want to start doing. You know, like, there's no reason you have to wait until you finish college. Like, you can totally get started. Like, I started my business stuff while I was still in high school and racing motocross. So like, you can definitely balance different things. So anyway, I told him, put together your plan, call me back. I'm curious kind of what it looks like and everything. So literally one day goes by, and I'm sitting here just working at my desk, working on stuff, and I get a FaceTime call from him, and I missed the call, and then I just grabbed my phone and I called him back, and he answered, and I was like, hey, what's up? He's like, oh, I didn't mean to call you. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, oh, but we can talk if you want. I'm not doing anything. And I was like, all right, yeah, I can chat for a second. And I was like, so did you put together a plan or anything like that? And he was like, no, not yet, blah, blah, blah. And long story short, we kind of just chit-chatted and bullshitted a little bit and just talked on the phone for a minute. But then, I kid you not, on that call, I saw there was something at the edge of the screen. I was like, what's that? And he's like, nothing. And I had a feeling what it was, so I guessed, and I was right. And when he moved it over and everything, I saw what it was, and he started actually hitting it. And basically, it was a bong, and he was smoking it and everything like that. And I didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything because he's my close friend, and I just didn't really want to call him out, and he can do his thing, like I'm not I'm not in the position to tell him what to do or whatever. But still, once we got off the call, I sat there, and it's part of why I want to make this video, because I was like, he literally told me a day before he wanted to drop out of school, he wanted to lock in, and he didn't want to live an average life and everything. Yet here he is, and it was like just the afternoon on a weekday, just a normal weekday in the afternoon, and he's just in his room smoking a bong, not doing anything. And I was just like, that is the most delusional fucking mentality you could possibly have. Like, how can you possibly want to do more and lock in and not be average, but then you're doing stuff like that? Like, it's a completely delusional mentality. And the reason I want to tell you that story is because look at what you're currently doing, the actions you're taking and the choices you're making, and just be real with yourself. Like, maybe you're completely locked in right now and you're actually doing the work. And if you are, fucking awesome. Like, it's only a matter of time before you really start to see the results coming through. But if you want big things and you don't want to be average and you want to be an outlier, then you have to do outlier things. You can't do what the average person does. So like, genuinely look at what you're currently doing and the choices you're making and how you're spending your time, your day, and your money, and really decide and tell yourself, like, is this what an outlier would be doing? Or is this what an average person would be doing? And another thought experiment that you can use is, if you did this particular habit every single day for the next year or 2 years, what would that lead to? And if it doesn't lead somewhere good, and it doesn't lead to a version of you that you want to be, then it should probably get cut out. Whereas if it's something like you're hitting the gym every day and you thought, okay, what if I did that every single day for the next year or two, what would that lead to? Well, if you hit the gym every day for the next year or two, you're gonna be in really good shape, which is most likely more in the direction of where you wanna be. So anyway, just be real with yourself and look at that. And then another example I wanted to share with you was another friend of mine who I've worked with, literally just like him and I work here in my office and everything. And he works on his business, I work on mine. And he's gotten a lot better now, but in the past, he would literally, I'd be working for 3-4 hours straight, literally. When I lock in, like, I'm going. And he would be sitting over here at the other desk, and every time I'd turn around, my phone, by the way, I leave it on my dresser or just like in a closet or just somewhere completely away from my desk so that I don't have the distraction. I keep the ringer off. So when I'm at my desk, like, I'm completely focused and locked in and everything. And every time I turn around, he would talk such a big game, all this money he wants to be making. He wants to be making millions of dollars, literally tens of millions of dollars, and all this big stuff that he wants to do. And he's constantly talking about how we're so different from the average people and how we work so hard and how blah, 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 like all this stuff, talking such a big game. Every single time I would turn around, he'd be on his phone on either Snapchat or some dating app or whatever. And not gonna lie, at the time, what I thought was kind of funny is that he couldn't even afford to take a girl on a date. So I was just like, bro, what are you doing? Like, that is not a priority right now. My perspective, totally side thing, is if you can't even afford the dating app, like the monthly subscription, or you can't afford to take a girl on a date, that shouldn't even be a priority for you. Like, you should be prioritizing making money and stuff. That's something I would tell my younger self, by the way, 100%. I told him that countless times. But I'd look over and he'd be doing that, or he'd be scrolling on social media. So he'd like never be actually working, or he'd still have his phone next to him while he's supposed to be working. And just a side thing there, even if he was working and everything, I don't know if you know this, but there was actual science and studies done, or there's actual science and there's been studies done that have proven that literally the simple, if you're like in the middle of a task and you get a text message, the simple act of you sending a text or replying to that, how long do you think that distracts you for, or like takes you off track for? Like actually, like how long do you think it did? Most likely your answer is, maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Maybe it took me a minute to read and reply to it. The study came out, it's 17 minutes, because it's not just the act of doing it. It is literally your brain takes about 5 to 15 minutes to actually get into flow and get into the zone when it comes to a particular task that you're working on. And as soon as you do something like that, that's a distraction, it completely resets that clock. So it takes like the 2 or so minutes for you to actually deal with the thing, but then it takes like 15 minutes for you to get back to the level of focus that you were at before. So there's something to keep in mind. Sorry, I keep throwing in like random shit, but hopefully you're like writing them down because it's actually like good stuff that's helpful. At least it has been for me. But anyway, he'd be doing that. And then the funniest thing that he would do, and he doesn't do it anymore, but the funniest thing he would do is he would tell me that he needed to meditate. Like he'd been working so hard that he needed to meditate for a bit. And I was like, all right, bro. So I'd still be sitting here doing my work, doing my thing. And he'd go over to another part of the room and he would usually lay down. He'd lay on my floor and he would start to meditate. Well, sure enough, 10, 20 minutes goes by, I'm working and I look over and I'm like, he's still not at the desk. Like, what's he doing? So I walk over. Almost every single time that he ended up meditating, he ended up passing out and falling asleep on my floor. And he would literally sleep there for sometimes it would be 20 minutes. Sometimes it'd be like 3 hours. And I'd be like, what is happening? Like, what are you doing? But once again, I would sit there and I'd be like, how delusional can you be that you want to not live an average life and you want to be this like major outlier, especially when you're talking big game of like making tens of millions of dollars. Like, you know the size of the population that actually makes that kind of money? Like if you want to do that, you have to do some really extraordinary or just out of the ordinary outlier type habits and make those types of choices. You know what I mean? So I'm just sitting here and I'm like, how can you be that delusional where you're not even doing like any work at all? Like you're sitting at the desk, but you're not working. And yet you want to compete with these guys who are practically like robots. So anyway, that's just another example. But I want to explain the flip side to you real quick. And I know this video is getting a little long, so I'll try and wrap it up. But a good friend of mine, he's one of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. Him and I used to run our marketing agency in the past. I mentioned it in the intro, us scaling that agency. This is the guy who I built that with. Now he's absolutely dominating and killing it at his software company. And his software company is currently valued at over $50 million. I think that they're on like their Series B or something. I think that's the next one coming up. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, he's doing extremely well. And I've worked with him for so long, but he actually invited me to come and work with him on the software company when he first got it started. So I flew to London to work with him later last year to work on that. And I stayed with him for a month. Like literally I lived in the same apartment as he did and we worked every single day on it and stuff. And I got to see firsthand what it looks like to, now I can say this because like the company's doing well and it's valued at this. But I was able, looking back, I'm like, wow, I was able to see what it looks like to be on the ground floor and firsthand with the CEO and founder of a $50 million software company. And I'm gonna tell you exactly what that looked like. So every single day, he would wake up at 7 a.m. Didn't matter when he went to bed, every single day like clockwork, he'd wake up at 7 a.m. He'd be leaving the apartment, and luckily this building we were in, it had like a co-working space at the bottom, which was super sick. So we didn't even have to leave, like we just went down there. But, and the rent at that place was like literally $5,000 a month, I think. So like really nice building. And some of the people in that building that I even got to meet, like one dude ran a $100 million company. Another dude, his wife is like the CFO at Microsoft or something like that, like really high up in Microsoft. I was like, damn, like these are some high level people. So it was pretty cool. But he would, anyway, going back to the story, He'd wake up at 7. By 7:30, he'd be walking out of the apartment with his backpack to go down to the co-working space. And then I'd obviously get ready, do my thing, and then I'd head down there. Now, when I would head down there, almost every single day, he would be sitting at one of the tables and he'd be, I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he had his notebook open and he was writing something. I don't know if he was journaling or if he was planning out his day, not totally sure, but he was doing something with his notepad and journal. And then after that, he'd get to work and obviously we'd start working on our tasks and everything. Now, throughout the day, he literally worked in that co-working space all day, the entire day. He'd be on calls, he'd be working on his computer. He would like legitimately be locked in. I never once, and I'm not exaggerating, I never once saw him scrolling on his phone or just casually back on his phone doing anything. And like no fucking, he doesn't have Snapchat. He wasn't scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, nothing like that. I never saw him on his phone unless if he was on an important phone call or if he was messaging somebody on WhatsApp for business or something like that. Like completely focused and locked in. The only times he wasn't in the co-working space was when he went off to the gym or when he went to get groceries and food and stuff, and when he would go to eat lunch and everything. Now, even when he would go to eat lunch, this is something my other buddy would do, so I'll tell you real quick. My other buddy, what he would do is when we would eat and everything, he would go upstairs and like we would do it together. So we'd make our food or whatever, but he would literally drive into town, which is literally like 20 minutes from here. He would drive into town to get a meal that honestly wasn't very healthy. And so he'd drive 40 minutes round trip, pay for this decently expensive meal that's loaded with carbs and all this stuff, which gives you brain fog. That's a topic for another video. He'd come all the way back. And then once he got back, I just cooked my food here and I focused on just high protein meals and everything. But then sit down and watch a TV show, just like a random fucking TV show. Like he always wanted to watch Young Sheldon. So, which at the time I enjoyed it as well, but he wanted to watch that, but he would take so long to eat. And like I would eat my food, I'd be done in like 5 minutes. And what I do now is literally I'll just go make my meal, eat it quick, no music, no video, no nothing. I'll eat it and I'll come back down to work. But anyway, he would take so long to eat. And the whole time he'd be laying on the couch on Snapchat, Instagram, whatever, doing that. And then an episode would finish and I'd be like, all right, I'm going back down to work. And then he'd either put his food away because he didn't even eat, or he would keep eating and turn on another episode or something. Now, going back to the London example, that friend, this high value successful friend, what he would do for lunch is he'd make himself a really healthy, high protein meal. And then if he listened or watched anything, I noticed it was like a podcast such as like The Diary of a CEO or something like that. Like it was helpful for him and it was related to and based on something that he needed help with at that time with his company. So it was intentional. He was intentional with what he was doing, what he was watching, and what he was listening to. So that's how he would eat lunch. And then he'd obviously hit gym during the day. And then obviously get back to work in the co-working space. And then he'd have his dinner, usually pretty early, around like 6 or 7 o'clock, and then go back down to the co-working space and keep working. He wouldn't finish in the co-working space until literally around like 10 o'clock at night, every night. So he'd start at like 7:30, wouldn't finish until like 10 o'clock at night. And this made me laugh because I was like, dude, how do you do this? Because he would come up to the apartment at like 10:30. He'd go into his room and he'd have the door open or whatever. He'd be laying in bed, still on his computer, still doing stuff. And I know it wasn't like high level stuff. He even told me it was kind of just like brainless work that he was just doing, like some admin stuff or whatever. But he would still be working even once he was in bed. And then obviously he would go to bed after that. But I said he was like a robot because I had never seen anybody work that hard like that before. But it showed me that's what it takes. I was like, wow, there's another level to this. There's another level to hard work and productivity and focus and actually locking in. So I got to see firsthand what that looks like. And that's exactly what it looked like. Like that's the entire picture. So now you know as well. So now what you can do is look at your daily schedule and like what you're spending your time on, what you're spending your money on, and your actual level of focus and commitment to whatever it is you're doing, and compare it to that. Like literally compare it to that, compare it to my buddies that I mentioned before, and really decide for yourself if you are actually, the current version of you, if you're actually worthy of getting whatever it is that you want to get. Like, be honest. Are you the person who is actually worthy of having whatever it is you want? Because if you don't have it, most likely you're not worthy of it. Like I'll agree right now, I have a long way to go to get to what I want, and I still don't think I'm worthy of it yet. Like I'm still working on a lot of shit. I'm still trying to figure my stuff out. But I use these thought experiments to constantly try and improve myself. And that's where I'm going to get into the last piece right here, which is the actual tactical, what you can do. And this is that unique, kind of unheard of and wacky strategy. But hear me out, because this is what helped me tremendously with racing. And it's also now helped me in my business, work, everything. Waking up early, cutting out bad habits, creating new habits, all that stuff. And what it's called is the alter ego effect. And basically, in a nutshell, it is you taking on the identity of somebody that you look up to and who you want to become. So what you can do right now, take out a piece of paper and write down, this is literally what I've done countless times, write down every single thing about yourself and like your habits, your decisions you make, the choices you make, the things you do. Write down every single thing that you think isn't a good thing or that isn't aligned with who you want to be and what you want to achieve. So stuff could be like you eat too much junk food, or you sleep in every day, or you drink alcohol, or just you don't hit the gym, that type of stuff. Every single thing you can think of. And then on another piece of paper, figure out the name of somebody, or you can come up with something. I mean, you could use any name and then just create a new persona, a new character. Or you can look and find somebody who you actually look up to, like a legit person, which that's what I do, because then I can actually visualize them better. And, maybe I've seen them in movies or something like that. So it just helps me make it more real. But write down all of the traits they have, the stuff they do, what they think about, the stuff that goes through their mind. Like if you sleep in every day, this person wakes up at maybe 6 a.m. every day and goes to bed at the same time every day. If you don't work out, this person works out. Like it's that simple. You're basically designing your own video game character. Like the best way to view this is life is a video game and you can choose the character that you want to be. So literally create your ideal character. Like whatever character or person that you believe is worthy of, or no, think about it this way. Whoever you want to become and whatever it is that you want to achieve or have or whatever, think about the person who already has that and the person worthy of it. And then design them. Write down everything they do, everything they think about, all of their character traits, their habits, everything. Write it down. And then once you do that, you can instantly do this and instantly become that person by simply flipping into that character. Every day, decide to be this person, and you can literally like sit back, close your eyes and say, I am so-and-so, say their name, and then have this notebook right here. This is my alter ego. I don't know if you can see it on my thing. I literally have my alter ego written down right here, and it's next to my desk so that I can see it all the time. I also want to keep my background up so I can see it all the time while I'm working. Like I use this actively. So literally write it down, figure out who you want to be, and then every day be that person. Take on those character traits. And when you pretend long enough to be this person, eventually you will actually become them, because your habits form your reality. So if you take on the same habits as this person, eventually you will be just like them. Like if they're in really good shape, if you take on the same habits as them, eventually you'll be in really good shape. So hopefully that makes sense, but that is the fastest way to completely flip your identity and completely flip so that you can be just like these super ultra successful people, is by acting as if you're already them. And eventually you'll have what they have because your habits form your reality. So hopefully that makes sense. Put any comments below if you have any questions or anything like that. And but hopefully the video was useful. If you want more deep in-depth content like this and you like to read, feel free to check out my newsletter linked in the description below. And if you want any of my paid stuff, that's also linked below as well. Like if you're curious how I make money, it's not actually through YouTube or Instagram or anything like that. I'm actually a freelance video editor, and I put together a full-blown program linked in the description below on how to become a freelancer. A through Z, like the exact process that I use to be able to work remotely and do what I enjoy doing. So if you're curious, feel free to check it out. But anyway, with that being said, I will see you in the next video. Peace.